What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. Joined as always by my co-host Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
Man, it is the weekend's here.
Yeah, it
as
is.
we're as we're recording on a Saturday, beautiful day. Don't have to go to work. Woke up and had a late breakfast.
Yeah,
Uh,
you did.
man, trying to give me guff about breakfast. It's almost lunchtime. I'm
Almost
like,
lunchtime,
man,
bro.
breakfast is whenever you want it to be, man.
There it is. Well, I mean, if you want to go to the historical meaning of the word, you're breaking your fast. It's the first meal of the
Yep,
day, so it doesn't matter when it happens. But yes, I was giving you guff about it because at that point I'd already been up for about 2 or 3 hours.
yep.
So
Nope, nope. I don't have a kid. You do.
oh, dude,
That's
man, you bring that up. 6:30 in the morning, my bedroom door opens, and she's asking me, "Dad, can I watch TV?" Now I have to check at what time it is, right?
mhm.
Because there have been times in the past where she's asked me that at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, "No, babe, you have to go back to bed." But no, so I hit the clock this morning. It's 6:30. Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. That's about the time you normally get up during the week anyway. So have at it and have fun. Just leave me alone.
Yep, yep.
I know all of our other parents out there can relate to that one, but we're not here to talk about my kid and her crazy habits. We are here to talk about some of the best of the rest type situation, best of the rest, um, because the draft is more than one round. It is more than 2 rounds. This is not the NBA. This is the NFL where we have 7 rounds. Now it's not the MLB where they have 82 rounds or
Yeah, no.
whatever it is, however ridiculous amount. But I think a lot of times we get caught up in who we can get in the first round. Then we tend to forget that it's more than one round and it's a part of building the team.
Mhm.
So let me hit this intro and we will get into it. All right. Best of the rest. We kind of like we brought it up at the tail end of the last week's live show because we hadn't had a chance to really sit down and do one of these and dive in a little deeper. But we're diving in today, and uh, we got two names that we're coming at you with, and one I'm sure a lot of our um, fan base, or at least the folks that watch us, has heard about, but other one that might not have heard about. So let's start with the one that you might not have heard about, and that is Jonah Ellis.
Yep.
Which
Yeah,
is
so this is a guy I've actually heard you bring up his name a few times, along with like him and Luke McCaffrey have
Mhm.
been kind of like later draft pick guys that you would love to see the Falcons maybe take a flyer on, or bring these guys in and develop them. Neither one of those guys, in this case Jonah Ellis, I don't think is a guy that you expect. Hey, we're going to draft. We're going to go through training camp. Week one, he's going to come in and be a beast. You don't
Right,
expect that. You're not expecting that out of this kind of guy.
right,
What you expect though is the traits that he does show to still show up. You expect to see him come in, work on certain things, potentially bulking up some more, working on maybe some of his fluidity, just trying to get better in some of the aspects that he's weak on, to become a better player later on. At bare minimum, he looks like he could be a very good rotation piece.
mhm.
Uh, Potentially, the guy has the right kind of traits that there is the potential that he could be a really good starter in the league.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not that kind of thing. But we're looking at a guy in Jonah Ellis. First of all, he's got his brother plays for the Falcons already. His dad was I think it was a defensive tackle
Yeah, he was a
from
defensive
like the mid
tackle.
'90s.
Right, let's see. Yeah, he played born and raised in Detroit. His dad, Luther, played for the Lions, uh, in the in the mid-90s is what it
But
what it
so
appears.
not as soon as you said it, because I hadn't seen his first name. now that you say the first, his first name, and
Mhm.
I put it together with the last name, Luther Ellis, like I do remember hearing that name being called
Right.
back in the mid '90s. So mid '90s, maybe early 2000s. I do remember that name
Yep.
being
Yeah,
called.
and obviously we know Caden Ellis. There's another
Yeah.
Ellis brother that plays for Philadelphia.
Yep.
And then now you have Jonah Ellis. This is like there's 5 biological children in this family, and I say it that way because it's a big family. They've adopted 7 kids, which is awesome to see. But you have like I said, strong bloodlines as far as the NFL is concerned. Um,
Yes.
kind of like Jake Matthews, and
Well, one of the things like about is because of the fact that he has grown in NFL, uh, you know, um, family. He shows really good just general football IQ,
oh yeah.
and with
Mhm.
his ability to diagnose plays quickly and adapting to what's going on in front of him. A lot of that seems to come very instinctually to him. And a lot of that just comes down to he's been in a family that has been steeped in the culture of football, and so he's just absorbed that over the years, even before he was playing football. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's a family business in the sense of
exactly.
like you would expect a multi-generational cattle rancher to know a lot about cows, just out of being in that environment. And it's the same deal here. You have, when you have 2 brothers who are in the NFL, your father who was in the NFL, like you're steeped in that tradition, in that business. Um, and like I would imagine that these guys eat, breathe, and sleep, NFL or just
Mhm.
football in general. Um,
Yep.
now he's a little on the like slider side, I guess you could say, as far as like a traditional D end at 6'2", 248. But
Which is actually up from his playing weight. So it sounds like he's probably heard that from like his agent, from
mhm,
from teams in general, that they would like to see him maybe bulk up a little bit. Not the he does run a pretty good 44A defensive end. He's like 4.47.
mhm.
It's not horrible. It's not super great. Uh, so him adding a little bit more weight on there, how does that affect him? We don't know. But yeah, he's like you said, 6'2", currently at 248. He played at about 240 while
Yeah,
he was at Utah.
I'm about to say at the combine he weighed at 248, and then at his pro day he was back down to like 243. So, but when you watch him on tape, like I there's some guys that just look bigger and
Yeah,
play bigger.
yeah.
Like he doesn't look like he's 240 something. Now, granted,
Mm,
it could be just the fact that he plays out in on the West Coast and the whichever, I think it's the Pac-12, whichever conference Utah's in.
yep.
So those guys tend to be a little smaller, all the way around than what we're used to seeing here in the SEC or this side of the of the country in with the bigger D lineman, bigger O lineman. But watching him play, he was. I actually thought he looked like his shoulders are like he's broad.
Yeah.
So that frame could probably handle some more weight. But I just wonder if he goes that route, does he lose his first step? Because
Yeah.
like the first step explosiveness combined with his long arms is what gets him to the quarterback more times than not.
Yeah. And he's got a good he's got some good like just moves in general, both
Mhm.
inside moves, outside moves. He's
Yeah,
got a good bull rush.
that inside spin move, like
Yeah.
it's what I like about it is like when he knows when to deploy it, I guess you could say,
Yes.
and he doesn't just this works, so I'm going to just do it all the time. You know, he's got that inside swim move that he generally deploys from like a wide 9 technique.
Mhm.
and he hits that like outside step, and then spins back inside with, um, with great success, really.
Yeah.
Um, but he also has the grip strength to like be able to disengage off of blockers. I'm over here getting all crazy. Um, but getting disengage
Trying to
off of blockers.
disengage from your mic.
That's right. That's right. Disengage from the microphone. um, but yeah, like, would I expect him to come in and be like the man? No. Like, but if we're going to, a lot of us feel like this is a draft that you could find yourself double dipping at edge. So if you go with a Turner or a Latu or a reverse in the first round, and you're sitting here in the third round with two picks, like, I could easily see them, if he's still sitting there, being the pick that they go for.
Yeah, I can see him. The his biggest problem is like he doesn't have great bend.
No, yeah,
So
he's a little stiff, and you can see that is he doesn't have the hip, the hip swivel,
yeah,
that when he does disengage from a tackle who's trying to push him out wide, he doesn't necessarily have the bend to get back in, but he has the speed to get back in.
yeah. No, he's definitely got the. He's a very much a high motor guy as
Very
well. He's that he doesn't give up on a play. So if he gets around the edge but the ball's out or it's a running play or something like that, especially on like little drag routes or something like that, I saw a couple of plays at least where he didn't beat his guy to the point where he could get to the quarterback. Quarterback got rid of the ball on a little short in route or something like that, and like a drag route. And the guy that ended up coming up at least, and if not making the tackle, at least getting a hand on the guy was Jonah Ellis coming from the backfield.
right,
So he's a guy that will give you, that motor, that constant motion, and doesn't give up on a play. So there's that. Uh, he 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 understands like in the run game where he needs to be. Now understanding and being able to do that are two totally different things. So he understands it, but he kind of his strength is maybe not quite as uh, up there with some of the higher end guys. So if he runs up against bigger, stronger offensive linemen, he can kind of get pushed out of the way.
right.
And he has problems disengaging if he doesn't get his hands out there first. Uh,
Um, I was
so
reading the Dane Bugler's The Beast from The Athletic, and he had a really interesting like pro comparison. And I want to show this now. Let's see here if I can do this correctly. And that's the one I want. Okay. So the pro comparison he had was Alex Highsmith, who just got paid recently from the um, Pittsburgh Steelers. And so if you take a look at the RAS score of Alex Highsmith and Jonah Ellis, they're pretty comparable. As far as same 33-inch arms. Ellis actually has a little bit bigger hands, which
mhm.
talks about that grip strength he has. Height maybe like an inch shorter than Highsmith, but same deal on the weight. Same area weight wise. We didn't have a 40 like an official 40 recorded because he was recovering from a hamstring.
Yeah,
Um, but you get down here in the vertical, this is that first step explosion, right? A 38-inch vertical from Jonah
yeah.
Ellis, 10-foot broad jump, 4.17 shuttle, and a 6.69 three cone, which is like amazing.
I think it's like the best three cone time in like
Right,
years.
right. And so, um, he definitely has the athleticism to develop into. I think his floor is a high end rotational piece.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
um,
I could absolutely see him being a guy that is brought in specifically, and I don't think he's a three down guy to start in the league.
right,
He's too much of a liability in the run game at this time. But that's something that he can work on as he matures in the league. But early on, he's definitely a guy that's like third down, obvious pass situations, I could see him coming in and just like go get the guy,
Right.
and being pretty good at that.
Exactly. I think, um, yeah, I think initially he could be, a DPR, um, like a sub package DPR guy, to start his career, who could then potentially develop into, a 3 down player. Um, like I could easily see him being like a Ravens outside linebacker. You know what I'm saying? Like, um,
Yeah,
but he's a guy who early in the process, I enjoyed watching. Kind of fell off of him a little bit as I started digging into more of the high end guys,
mhm.
as it really looked like, after we signed Kirk Cousins and all that jazz, and it really looked like, okay, edge is a big need. Started to look at the more of the high end guys, but now that we're getting closer to the draft, it's like, okay, let's swing back around to some of the, draft diamonds, so to speak. And he's definitely, I
Yeah.
think, has the potential of being that.
And I didn't look at him quite as deeply, but another guy that kind of falls into the same realm as a Jonah Ellis, and you probably are going to be able to get him late second, early third, maybe as late as mid third. Like I think him and Jonah Ellis are in the kind of same boat, and that's Braylon Trice.
Hmm.
He's another guy that you come in, and I don't think he's a 3 down guy. That he's a complement piece to what we believe is going to be an edge early on
Right.
in the first, whether it's in the eighth or mid teens or whatever pick. We believe that there's probably going to be an edge there somewhere. Uh, they could surprise us all and take the cornerback at 8,
Oh
which
yeah,
would
for
be
sure.
fine. And then maybe these guys are not in the picture at that point because then they're probably for sure going to be looking for edge in the second.
Oh yeah.
And then that's where you get into like the Chop Robinsons,
I,
Marshawn Nealons, those guys.
I think somebody brought up a good point on Twitter, like the fall off from the top corners after you get past like a Terrion Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell and like Kool-Aid McKinstry,
Yeah.
those kind of guys. Like the fall off from corner isn't as steep as it is in edge.
Mhm.
Like the big three, you can nitpick all day long the big three as far as comparing Verse to Latu to Turner, but if you end up with any one of those threes, you have the premier edges of this draft.
Mhm.
And then the fall off from, you know, whoever you slot, say you slot Verse as your third, pass rusher, like the fall off from, that pass rusher to the next tier, the Nealons and the Trices and the Ellises, and like is a bigger gap. So I could see, I could easily see them going with going with an edge in the first round if they stick there. But I still don't think it precludes them from double dipping with one of these other guys.
No. Again, if we go edge in the first, I think we're for sure getting another edge. If not second round, it'll be one of the third round picks. I think the other third round pick might end up being the other guy we're going to talk about in a minute, or a guy like him,
Right.
potentially. And I would be fine with that too. But yeah, I think if you get that edge in the first, I think you come back in the third, you got your 2 third round picks, and one of those 2 third round picks is probably going to be another edge guy. And Jonah Ellis would be a good candidate for that. Braylon Trice would be a good candidate for that. And probably another couple of guys that I really haven't looked at all that much. But there's once you get into that third, fourth round area, there are a bunch of guys that you could conceivably see getting picked up in those areas.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's move on to that other guy that you um, alluded to there as our second
Oh,
best of the
segue,
rest.
sir.
That's right. It's a good segue. I liked it. I think you deserve a raise from that one. So we'll go from $0 to zero plus $0. There you go.
Nice,
Yeah.
man. Taking that cruise later on this year.
There it is. There it is. That's what I'm talking about. What was that? That meme? Have you seen that meme where the lady is like, "Oh, we just fired that guy, and guess what? You have been promoted." It's like one of those situations. Guess what?
Oh
Um,
man.
you have been promoted. Uh, Anyway, so the next guy that we're talking about is, and this comes off the heels of the Falcons sending a large contingent to Washington to watch Michael Penix. Um, and then you have the video from, I don't know if y'all saw it on Twitter or not, but the video from Poolside with Brian Baldinger, who might have been two or three margaritas in. I'm just kidding. I don't know. That's what
I
people are saying. That's a
that's when
good.
I do my best work, man.
That's right. But anyway, so he's talking about like he gets the feeling that the Falcons are like hunting for a QB. Um, and which is odd to say because of what they did in the offseason, right? You go out
Well,
and you sign Kirk Cousins to
yeah,
essentially a 2-year, $90 million deal.
but if this was us signing Kirk Cousins even 2 years ago, I would probably be in the same boat as you.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, I think that they are hunting a quarterback. I don't necessarily mean that. I don't think that means that for sure they're going to grab one this draft. But I do think they are hunting a quarterback because this is Kirk Cousins. Yes, I think is a really good signing. He immediately, as far as quarterback goes, assuming that he comes back to the same form that it doesn't even have to be last year form; it could be the year before. But
Mhm.
it's assuming he just is what Kirk Cousins has been over the past 6 to 8 years, which has been a very good starter. He immediately gives you the best quarterback in the NFC South.
Right.
Like that's a good signing. However, that's a very small window that you're
Yeah, that's
you're
the
you're
thing.
getting him with. So, if you're going to have that small window, you don't want to be back in the same scenario that we were in before Kirk Cousins got here. Uh, in 2-3 years potentially. So yeah, do you want to try to find a guy now that you can sit? That obviously you're not going to probably going to get one of the top 3 or 4 guys.
No.
But maybe a Michael Penix drops to you. Do you take him at 8? And if you take him at 8, do you then say, well, we're going to draft this guy with our first round of our draft, and then he's going to sit for 2 years? Do you want to do that? No. So then you start looking at a lot of other guys on this board. I could see them potentially grabbing one and looking to develop a guy. Uh, but so I agree that they're hunting, but whether or not they find what they're looking for this draft, next draft, the one after, I think they are hunting it.
Right. And I agree that I agree with you completely that they are. I think they come out of this draft with a guy. Now, you could tell that they're wanting at bare minimum competition for Tyler Heineke, because if they were satisfied with Heineke, they would, to me, they wouldn't have messed with his contract, because you just signed him to that last year.
Mhm.
And so with them asking him to take a pay cut and then making the public statement of, having to, uh, they want competition for that position, to me lends itself to, okay, let's go pick up a guy who may have some. This is a pretty full draft as far as QB prospects go.
Mhm.
Obviously, you have your top 3 or 4 that are quote unquote head and shoulders above everybody else, and being Williams, May, Daniels, and McCarthy. I think
Mhm.
that's a that 2 weeks out from the draft, from the draft, or a little over a week out from the draft. That's the pretty much the consensus. Well, now you have that next tier, that Penix, Nix, and then the guy we're talking about here, Spencer Rattler. And on Dane Bugler's full on big board, he has Spencer Rattler as his QB7 and has him as a 72nd overall prospect. So I think the Falcons have a good idea that before they want to pick a QB, guys like Bo Nix and Michael Penix will probably be gone. Um, so like Rattler might be the next best guy, the start of the third tier, the bottom of the second tier, however you want to lay that out. And Rattler gives you some things to be, like excited about as far as either a high end backup, a Gardner Minshew type, a that could come in and play some games for you, or even a bridge quarterback if you find yourself 2 years from now, Cousins hanging his cleats up, and you're not necessarily completely out of the woods. Because I mean, he left college with a career 68.5% completion percentage, 77 touchdowns to 32 interceptions. Um, so he's left college with quite a good bit of production.
Well, he he was a 5-star recruit.
Hmm.
This guy came into college, was a 5-star recruit. I think he started at Oklahoma,
He did.
and then got overtaken there, and then transferred out to South Carolina.
Correct.
But this guy is like a really good athlete. Has really good like balance. Like he's able to get around inside the pocket really well. He's got the speed to pick up first downs. In the instances where the pass, the throw isn't there. He's got that kind of thing, and he's got the arm strength to get to throw it anywhere from any platform. He's got like the, I have seen some throws that this guy made in college, and I'm like literally wow throws, and he's just you know
The
he's
problem that you have with Rattler, like to me, Rattler and Penix are pretty close. Like to me, Rattler gives you just about everything Penix gives you with some mobility, right? But the problem that you have with that I saw with Rattler is like, he'll give you a pass where you're like, holy crap, man, he just gave you the weird platform throw with accuracy and zip, and then the next play, he's trusting his arm too much in a sense and throwing an interception. The decision making sometimes he can get a little reckless because he has like what combined 20 interceptions and 14 fumbles at South Carolina. Now, when you watch that, South Carolina's offensive line did him absolutely no favors.
no.
That dude on almost every snap, on every drop back, was running for his daggum life.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see him what he looks like with a more consistent offensive line.
Yep.
That would be interesting to see. But he was a 2 year starter and overcame a lot of like personal adversity. He was in that Netflix QB show. Um, and by the time that show was done, it wasn't really highly thought of as far as personality wise. Reportedly rubbed people the wrong way at Oklahoma teammates and coaches, but has since like seemingly matured in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so hopefully, you know, that other stuff is behind him. I would imagine getting benched for Caleb Williams, the way he did, it was kind of probably the wake up call that he needed. Because coming into that season, before he got benched for Caleb Williams, like he was talked about as being a Heisman, candidate, a Heisman finalist, even.
Yeah.
He came in with a lot of expectations, and then everything kind of crashed and burned around him. So you're hoping that going through that adversity, he comes out the other side better for it.
Yeah. When we look at some of the some of his weaknesses that you would again that's why I think this makes him a good candidate for taking him in the third round
For sure.
potentially, uh, and letting him sit behind a Kirk Cousins who is a guy who's been in the league for many years, knows what it takes to win in the NFL, knows what it takes to play quarterback in the NFL, um, is really good with his mechanics, and things
Hmm.
like that, which is one of the things that really is one of the weaker aspects for Rattler right now, which is like just his mechanics can be very inconsistent.
Right.
Um, he his footwork, his release basically just keeps him from being that that standout quarterback like the top tier guys.
Yep.
You if he's able to at some point fix that and become more consistent with his mechanics, whether he's throwing from the pocket or on the move, or what have you. Like the comparisons for his arm are basically Mahomes
Yep.
type comparisons.
Like
He can make all the throws from all kinds of different angles, do all the kinds of crazy stuff that you see Mahomes do. It's just he hasn't had that consistency to back it up.
I'll say this, like in a lot, like watching him play, I've like immediately thought to myself, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I know he got a didn't work out well here, but he seemed like Ritter with much better arm talent.
Yeah,
As far as you know, his accuracy wasn't always there. Like, but you got to think if you're high on Xavier Leggett, this was the guy that was throwing him the ball. You know,
yeah,
so that's something that you always like. I know I am not one that separates a a QB from a wide receiver.
yep,
Um, you can say that Michael Penix looks as good because he has three NFL quality receivers. Well, he had to get him the ball. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, yes, they can help each
Well,
other out. It's a symbiotic relationship, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
yeah, like one of the other problems that that Rattler tends to show is he has a penchant for like locking onto his primary
Target.
receiver,
Yep.
even if like when you look at the film, it's like, well, if you had just turned your head over here, this guy's wide open, go. That's where the ball should have gone. Even in those scenarios, he's still locking onto his primary guy. So he's got to learn to actually go through his progressions. But again, maybe some of that is, again, like you said, you're sitting there behind the offensive line for South Carolina,
That thing was
and on top
rusted.
of that, your primary receiver in most instances is probably Leggett. So having that guy be your primary guy and wanting to give him every opportunity so you can get him the ball, I get it, but
Mhm.
also like you're almost never given the time to properly go through your progressions. Uh,
Those are the
some of it
things. Yeah,
might be
those
hand in hand.
right. Those are the things that you have to look at when you're evaluating. And I'm not even trying to sit here and try to say that I'm the best evaluator because I'm not. But when you're evaluating, you have to look at the entire picture. You can't just look at stats. You can't just look at the scoreboard. You have to look at the whole thing. You have to look at like how, especially when it comes to quality, to college players, because you have to look at the quality of the players that are around them. Like how many of these guys are going to be selling insurance or, selling a car here in a few years versus how many of these guys are, in the league playing, right?
Yeah,
So, the more guys that you have that are playing in the league, it can sometimes skew how good we think you actually are. Um, that historic LSU offense comes to mind. Like how many of those players are in the league now, from O linemen to pass catchers to even, running backs. So
yeah,
those are things that you just have to consider when you're looking at guys. But, you know, if you're looking at somebody like a Penix or even a Rattler, and we're talking about Rattler here, um, he's 23 years old when he comes in the league. If he sits for 2-3 years, you're talking about 25, 26, and that's more of in that range of uh, having that time to develop, and you're not too old, so to speak. I mean, Jordan Love, when he finally got his start, was 25. This past, he's 25 now. He'll be 26 next year. Justin Fields, if you're looking at like, okay, 3 years of experience on the field, well, he's still, 25, 26. So he would be in that range. And since Terry Fontenot's got here, he has publicly talked about the KC model and he has publicly talked about the Green Bay model. Like you can definitely tell that that's what they want. They don't want to just throw a QB in the fire.
yeah,
They want to give him a chance to, sit and learn and get used to the system. I think the model in the NFL is starting to come back around to the way it kind of used to be, in a sense, like giving these guys a little bit of time to sit and before you just throw them to the wolves and they get, burned and destroyed. So it wouldn't surprise me if we come out of, especially having an extra third round pick, come out of this draft with a QB, and a guy like a Rattler, uh, I think gives you a lot of what you're looking for in a modern NFL QB. He can
Yeah.
move, he can extend. Um, he does okay moving in the pocket and getting out of trouble there while keeping his eyes down the field. He's got a very fluid release. He throws from a wide base, can throw from almost like every platform.
Yep.
And this coaching staff coming off of having Stafford who could throw off of every platform might be something that they are actually looking for.
Yeah, from a physical standpoint, like if you just look at his physical traits, this guy, like on paper, this guy's a first round pick. This guy's a first round, probably upper half of the first round uh, type pick because of like everything you just said, like the arm talent, the mobility, all of those things. Like when you put all of that together, it looks like a first round talent. Now, the decision making he's got to get better at. The you know being a little bit more accurate in some cases, but there have been plenty of times where I've seen him be super accurate.
Oh yeah.
But
Hmm.
I mean, some of that's going to be mechanics driven, right? So if you can clean up his mechanics, if you can do all the things that you need to do, then this guy could be a surprise hit for you 2 to 3 years down the line.
Right.
That's why you don't take him in the first round.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think like talent wise, this kid's got it all. He just has, and the good thing is from a talent perspective, you don't. There's nothing there that you're like, eh, maybe his height, maybe he's only six
Yeah.
one. He's only 6'1", but at the end of the day, that's not bad. But everything else that you're worried about are things that can be taught, are things
Hmm.
that you can work on and get better at. You can't work on and get better at, not dramatically. You're not going to be like, I ran a 4.8, or 5.1 40-yard dash. I'm going to really work hard and I'm going to go run a 4.6. Like that's just not going to happen. Okay. But at the end of the day, whether or not you're reading this defense correctly, and or making the right decision in this particular given situation, that is a thing that can be taught, that can be learned. You can get better at those things. Now, whether he puts in the work or not, whether the coaches coach him up right or not, that's all to be determined. But I think this guy for a third round pick is worth it if you're wanting to go that route. I think he's worth it for that third round pick to then sit behind an accomplished and potential what would have been if we had played out the rest of the season without the injury. I firmly think would have, if not won it, he would have been neck and neck right there as the MVP.
Oh
This
yeah,
guy,
yeah,
he was
exactly.
playing super, super good last year. So you pair him up with Rattler,
You
and
also you
that
have a
could be
guy
really
who
good.
was a fourth round, like Kurt was a fourth round pick who had to sit and wait his time, and so to speak.
Yep.
So, and like what Dane says here, it says overall Rattler has methodical play style that needs to be more urgent in his movement slash reads, but he has the arm talent, self confidence, and work habit that gives him a fighting chance to work his way up in NFL depth chart. Offers upside at the position, but the interview process will be crucial to his draft grades. If he nails that stuff down, I think he possesses all the things that he needs to, eventually be at bare minimum like I said, a high end backup. And if you come out of the draft with a high end backup, I'm not going to be mad at you or upset with you. I'm going to say, hey, good job.
Yep.
So, and that's what we got for you today on the first like full installment of the best of the rest. We'll probably have maybe we'll try to do one more of these before
Yep.
draft time. We got what, one more weekend. Let's see. Yep. We got one more weekend, so maybe we'll get another one of these in. But we'll be back live on Tuesday, 7 p.m. to have our normal show. Hopefully, we'll have some good, fun stuff to talk about there. If not, we will just be talking draft because that's what we're coming up on. As always, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grimm1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan.
At Jonathan M. Holder. Come on by and say hi.
I guess I'll also take this time to remind y'all that we will be doing a live draft show. And the first night's going to be, to borrow a phrase from an old podcast I used to listen to, a big live show.
Yep.
That we will be teaming up with Out of Your Falcon Mind and the New Millennium Falcon podcast to bring you the first round of the NFL draft. And hopefully y'all will enjoy that. And we'll have, I think Dancy's going to stop by, and we'll see who else we can wrangle into stopping by that first night. So, which should be a lot of fun, and hopefully y'all will join us. And we'll be talking more about that on Tuesday. And as always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.